webinar on the new engineering certification. Really pleased to have you all here. Actually, we've had exceptional interest, and I know there will be many people who weren't able to join this afternoon but will be watching the recording. So hello to you also. Sorry you couldn't be with us live. We've had somebody actually message whose wife just had a baby. That was a pretty valid excuse for not being on today's webinar. But for the rest of you, we're very, very pleased to have you here today. My name is Michelle Blitzos. I am the Chief Executive Officer at Surveyors Australia, and spotlighted with me today is Cameron Mills, who is our new president from 2026. Excited to have Cameron with us today. Cameron's also the Managing Director at SUREX Surveyors, well known for their tunnelling expertise. Also on today's call is Shane Croker, who are the sponsors of today's webinar from Emerson. You'll be hearing a lot more about Emerson from us and in partnership with us on our roadshows and various things across this year. So really looking forward to welcoming them on board as one of our new partners. So great to have you guys with us and helping us with this today.
Thank you, Michelle.
So what we're going to cover today is go through a little bit of the background and the history of where the certification has come from. We'll talk about the process and the new pathway of how all of this is going to work. But we're not going to dive very deeply into the competencies that are required for the application process. That's for the next webinar. We decided that there was just so much to unpack in this process that we would do it in 2 batches. So this one's the broad overview information. And for some of you on the call, that will be enough. That was all you needed. For the rest of you, you will want a deep dive, especially if you're expecting to make an application. I imagine you will want a deep dive into the core competencies, which are the key for your assessment. And so we'll dive into that. But very conscious that for some of you, this is your very first Surveyors Australia engagement and interaction with us. So welcome, nice to have you. And I believe we've probably also got a few people who are international and visiting us from overseas and joining us today, and we'll try to address any questions and concerns that you might have as well. So I'd also just like to acknowledge that some of our committee members are on this call, and they will correct me if I say something wrong or make a mistake, right? So please, committee members, Colin, Marion, Noel, especially those who were previously involved in GCA, you will be able to correct me if I get anything wrong. So the engineering certification is not a new process. It is not a new product. There's actually been an engineering, a certification for engineering surveyors around for quite some years. I want to say certainly more than 5 or 6, possibly close to 10 years.
Yep.
I think it's been around. It was started by SSI, who created the ESPAP. So the Engineering Surveying Professional for Australasia Pacific. So some of you will have had an ESPAP. Now, what happened when they formed and merged with CEBA and became the Geospatial Council of Australia? They did a review of that process and they made some changes, and it became the ACCENG, which I think was the Accredited Engineering. Actually, it might have had ACCENGSUR actually. So it was a very bit longer as a post-nominal. Now, we got involved in 2023-24. We got involved and we had a partnership with GCA. We actually, when GCA finished in August last year, we were able to purchase the program from them. And our committee have been working very diligently between September and December last year to revise this program, taking on the various bits of feedback that we had across last year to adjust it and revive it and make sure that this is spread out across the 15,000 surveyors that I think could potentially get this certification. So for many of you in the room, I think that's where we're going. Okay.
Michelle, can I just quickly take this opportunity to say thanks to you and thanks to Australia and the staff and actually all the committee members, because it's been a fair bit of work for us to get it where it is right now.
Yeah.
So well done
it
to
has,
all.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, you know, we will tell you a little bit about who we are and why we're doing this. But the first thing that I really wanted to address and that Cameron and I really wanted to address was why. Why do we need a certification process? Now, in 23, some of you may recall that the CFMEU in Victoria decided that anybody could do a set out on any piece of infrastructure and any building site in Victoria, particularly the big builds. And this was, I wouldn't say it was a wake-up call to us. I think we already knew that surveyors are very important and the role that they play. But it was when we at Surveyors Australia started really thinking about we need to be looking after the other 15,000 surveyors. So bit of a stat for you. There are about 23,000 surveyors in Australia. 3,500 of them are licensed and registered as cadastral surveyors with the Surveyors Board. So that leaves about another 15,000. Let's say there's about 5,000 that are training up, new to the profession, et cetera, et cetera. I reckon that leaves about another 15,000 or so that could be certified engineering surveyor. Now, some of those will be mine surveyors, some of them will be hydrographic, some of them will be geodesists. I get it. But still, okay. Marion says I'm overreaching. Let's say 10,000, okay? Target 10,000 surveyors that could be certified. Cameron, you're an engineering surveyor. Tell us a little bit about your background and your experience on job sites and why we need certifications.
Yeah, listen, you've mentioned a bit of why, right? And I spoke to Marion earlier today, and he seems to think that we won't need much convincing, but I think it's important to talk about it. But at the end of the day, I've worked in the industry for close to 30 years now, and so often, particularly in these tunneling gigs I've been working on the last 20 years, we're having to have registered surveyors to come in and sign off on our work, which is totally fine. But to be honest, I'm not too sure how they do it because I don't actually know exactly what we're doing. Now, that tells me at the end of the day, there's two reasons. One, someone's just putting that into a contract. Why? They don't really know what the register. They just want a higher standard. I think it's purely ignorance from the government's point of view or the contractors, where they think they want a higher standard. Whereas we all know that if you register a license, doesn't automatically mean you're of a higher standard. It just by definition, if you're registered in your regulated environment, it is assumed to be a higher standard. But to that end, because I see a lot of that in my industry, that to me is the market is yelling out for it. The market is wanting us to do this. So I say we give it to them, right? And we're seeing it a bit in Queensland, Queensland has embraced what was it called, Michelle? The SSI certification. And I am seeing, and I am seeing CES mention a few contracts now from the work we've been doing already. So
yeah, it's great. It's great.
Yep.
So what we want to do is, for many of you, you've put in years of study and certainly years of work to get to where you are. And yet the only ones that seem recognised anywhere are registered or licensed surveyors. And Queensland's been mentioned. Queensland does have a registration process for surveyors, and then they have a cadastral endorsement on top, but the other states don't have that. And so one of the things that registration process does, of course, it's in legislation, and it's our ultimate goal, isn't it, Colin, to get certified engineering surveyors in legislation. But that's going to take me many years of work, but we've started the process, but it will take some time to get that. But for now, as an industry, we can look after ourselves, much like engineers have done. They've had to look after themselves until they are able to get the legislation through. But for us, it is about providing you with a credential that validates your competency, that says that you meet a standard of delivery, that you're current in your knowledge and your skills, and that you act ethically. We think it will provide, we want to be providing you with ongoing professional development. So we won't ask for a show of hands, but how many of you did a diploma at TAFE or did your degree more than 10, 20 years ago, and you never had to do any further training beyond that? Because the only ones who are required to do any further training, Chris Moore, you've come to our conferences, so I know that you do more than that. But, you know, there's not a requirement, is there? There's no requirement for you to go and do any further training. Now, some of you work for great employers, and thank you, I see those hands. Some of you work for some great employers who do appreciate training and value training, and you do some training on site together in your workplaces. But you don't get together. We had an event in Melbourne shortly after the CFMEU issues, and I had blokes who'd been surveyors for more than 20 years who told me they had never been to a seminar like that before. And I think that's terrible. So we want to start looking after you all. We want to provide a service and a delivery. And, you know, Cameron and I were preparing these slides and we were doing the because, you know, why do we need this? And we could have kept going. You know, I don't know how many dot points I've got there, but we could have kept going, you know, because surveyors on all projects at all levels deserve recognition. Surveyors deserve to have a clear pathway, career pathway. So once you've got your diploma, senior surveyor. Well, what is a senior surveyor? Senior surveyor can mean multiple things, can't it? We've been able to add survey manager into the new codes that are coming out. So that's exciting. But, you know, apart from that, there's not really any differentiation. As Cameron said, you know, clients are expecting it now. It's in contracts. The government are pursuing mutual recognition and licensing across all trades and professions. So we're seeing that happen at a federal level. There's an expectation of quality in delivery of building infrastructure. You know, we all know what's happened to the building certifiers after Opal Towers. We don't want that to come to our industry, do we? And, you know, I think as Cameron said, and I've heard this before, and apologies to all the registered and licensed surveyors in the room, but really, do you really know what these engineering guys are doing? I mean, how many of you could really go on a 35-story high skyscraper or into a tunnel under a harbour or a railway line or, you know, any of that, right? It's a specialty and it deserves to be acknowledged as such. And quite frankly, we need to show the unions and others that we do know what we're doing and it is a skill and it is a necessity. So thanks to those couple of guys that have their hands raised, we are going to have questions at the end. I think you might be raising your hand because I asked, you know, have you ever done any training? But otherwise, we will take questions at the end. We've tried to allow plenty of time for that then, just so you can make sure we cover everything, just because of the numbers of people on the call. Hey, we don't want to get too sidetracked. So a little bit about who we are, because some of you have actually not heard of Surveyors Australia before. We were the Association of Consulting Surveyors National. Now, we were founded in 2011 and we started out on really a skill shortage journey. That's kind of where we came from. And we were known for our advocacy in what we did, particularly in Canberra, around the skill shortage and getting surveyors on the priority skills list. During COVID, we were one of 5 professions that were kept on the list thanks to our advocacy. Okay, so that's really been our strongest point of difference. And look, you know, I'll tell you a secret, knowing that this is being recorded. When I started 8 years ago, we were Consulting Surveyors National, and you know where our members were? New South Wales and Victoria. Doesn't seem very national to me, does it? However, I can now confirm we do now have members around Australia. We're up to about, we're actually up to 680 memberships now around Australia, which is about 5,000 individuals. Because the way we work is that the company joins and all the staff within that company get member benefits. So you can join as an individual as well, but it's still our preference, and actually it's cheaper, if the company joins as a whole and we want to look after all of you. So there's a slide there that kind of says everything we do. Cameron, do you want to add anything specifically to who we are and what we do and highlight anything there?
No, mate, I think you've done a good job, but also it's a good chance for us all to, if you have a look at the Surveyors Australia website. because Michelle actually showed me the other day, there's things like position descriptions, all sorts of stuff on there. Yeah, and a good description of what this program is going to be all about. No, that's good, mate.
So, training and events, resources, we've got all sorts of things there. We've just finished the hourly rate survey, which we're continue to improve so that it's looking after the engineering side of what we do. We run training and events. We run a business academy. So for those of you who are running your own business, but you're struggling, we can teach you how to do it better. So we've got a great 6-day program there, something to think about. We actually have our own registered training organisation, and Samantha Robinson's on the call. She's our RTO manager. We actually teach the Certificate 4 in surveying and spatial information and the Diploma of Surveying. So we can help you. It's a national course. They do 1 day a week online training with us and the rest employed with a surveyor. Right, so it's equivalent of the TAFE course. It's a national training package that we deliver. We'd like to think we deliver it a little better because all of our surveyors are fully employed in the profession, and we've got about a panel of 10 different surveyors teaching. We have a number of partnerships. We are the international member for FIG, the International Federation of Surveyors. So Australia is still represented internationally. We're on the Commonwealth Surveyors Association. We've got relationships in the Pacific and the ASEAN area, but we also work very closely with the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, the Australian Construction Industry Forum, the Council of Small Business Organisations. I think you get the idea. The Australian Subcontractors Alliance. We're pretty well connected, okay? And if we don't have the answer, we know somebody who does. So, and we also do the overseas skills assessments. We don't do the visa assessments. The Institution of Surveyors in New South Wales won that contract. So they'll be doing that. We don't do that. And of course, we've added the certification. Cameron mentioned our committee, and shout out to them. Many of them are on the call today, just to really highlight that we do have coverage from across the country, because we recognise that whilst engineering surveying is pretty much the same everywhere, unlike cadastral, there's still some differences in the states. You still use different, we've put as-built in here, right? But you all use different terminology even around as-built. Detail, feature survey, as-built, conformance. We could go on, but we've tried to cover it in the broader concept of what you all know it as. So I want to give a special shout out and thanks to them. Half our committee were part of the GCA model. So we've kept some of that history, that corporate knowledge has been kept. And then the other half of our committee are new members of Surveyors Australia and the Western Australian Institution, who've also had an engineering certification program for many years. And so Bennett's there representing them so that we can integrate these programs as much as possible. Okay, so now we can move into how's the thing going to work. The first thing is the core prerequisite is that you need to be a member of Surveyors Australia. Now, this is important, and there's some FAQs on the website as well that we highly recommend that you have a read of if you've got some questions about that. But certification shows that you're committed to your profession, right? That you are committed to knowing more, to learning more, to, the ongoing performance of that profession. And so you need somebody who's going to hold you accountable. And that's what a professional association does. That's why professional associations exist. Just fun fact here, I'm actually a certified association executive, which means I've also been through a similar process to all of you. I had to do a 5-hour exam, just so you know. I've been through mine, and I have to do CPD as well, and I have to be a member of my professional association. Okay, so it is how it works. It is how it works everywhere in every profession: accountants, pharmacists, engineers, electricians, the whole bit, okay? So that's the first thing that I'm going to point out. So if you don't want to be a member of ours, that's fine. You don't need to be certified. We're not, but if you want to be certified, you need to be a member and you need to have somebody hold you accountable, and you need to sign up to a code of ethics because it's part of what the certification is about. And that's what we'll be holding you accountable to, okay? Then there's the qualification pathway. Now, there's always been a qualification pathway, but it changed about mid last year in that we added the diploma of surveying. So you can have a degree or a diploma. And what we've done is there used to be different levels of experience. Now we've got a flat 5 years. Okay, everybody's got to have 5 years. Now, most of you, when you studied, you worked at the same time as you studied. So it shouldn't take very long once you've got your degree or your diploma for you to gain the years of experience. But we don't expect you to come out with a diploma or a degree and immediately be an expert as a surveyor. That doesn't happen in cadastral, doesn't happen in hydrographics, doesn't happen in mine surveying, it doesn't happen in engineering. Okay, you need to be able to get that level of experience. We do recognise that it's a little bit unfair to say, hey, here's a new program. By the way, you've all got to have a degree or a diploma. When 20 years ago or 30 years ago or 40 years ago, there was no such requirement. So we need to allow for those of you, perhaps some of the older ones in the room, who've been working for many, many years, and for whatever reason, right, you probably got stuck on a job and you didn't get to quite finish that degree, or you didn't quite get to finish that diploma course, or whatever it might have been called back then. I had somebody contact me this week and say, look, I did it in 1991 and it was called da-da-da. You meet the experience criteria, okay? So, or the experience pathway, you meet that. So right now we're saying 20. Now I know one of the questions is going to be, yeah, but I've got 18. Appreciate that. For now, we had to set a line. Okay. We had to say somewhere, and we chose 20. Not for any particular, we talked about 10. We talked about 15. In this first round, in this first go at this approach, we're starting with 20. Okay. You can contact us at our email and say, look, I've got 18, I've got 16. We'll keep a list. And Jasmine Bullman, who's just jumped on a plane to Paris actually right now on leave, which she had booked before she started working for us. She'll take a list of you all to the committee. At the end of the day, it's up to the committee to determine that, okay? So we're open to hearing from you, but right now we're saying the standard is 20 years. Do you want to say any more about that 20 years, Cameron?
No, I'm happy with that, mate. But it's important to know that the constant communication, back and forth talking, let us know what they're thinking. And, it's for the committee to sit down and analyse and assess, right?
Yep. So, you can also have an associate degree, a bachelor's. The other one challenge I know that I'm hearing from a few people is I've got a degree in engineering, but I'm working as a surveyor. Now, Colin could probably jump on and tell you what he thinks about some of the engineers that he's worked with and whether they really know surveying. The fact is, most engineering degrees, you do 6 weeks of sort of half days or something on surveying. Not sufficient. Not sufficient. One of the things we're looking at, because we run the RTO, is we're looking at bridging. Are there bridging courses? Is there a bridging component? I spoke to an engineer last week from Tasmania, and he said he'd be fine on the data management. He'd be fine on as-builts. He would struggle with survey control. Now, it's possible we need to develop a particular course or a particular component on survey control to help upskill the engineers. We're open to all of that, okay? We will look at all of that because it's our goal, as I said, to see as many of you recognised, but you've got to meet the standard, okay? We're not just handing these things out. These are not minties and lolly wrappers and, just something that you can put on your desk, right? You've got to do the work and you've got to prove that you know your stuff. And then, of course, we're looking for that 5 years experience working in engineering surveying. Okay, that's the key, right? You can't say, yeah, but I've been doing this and this, and I've been a project manager and I've been construction manager and I've done that, but only 2 years actually survey. 5 years survey is what we're looking for, okay? We're only keeping the practitioner, the 20 years plus is open for 2 years. So we're giving the guys who didn't know that this was coming 20 years ago the opportunity to get in first. Okay. We're giving you 2 years. That shouldn't be hard. You're experienced people, you know your stuff. Now, for some of you, you never studied. And so the thought of an assessment, which is what this is, freaks you out. Now, the webinar next time that we do in February, we're going to run through the core competencies and what's expected and what's required to try and take that away. But can I just encourage you, you know your stuff. And for those, it will probably be a bit more reliant on the interview component than it will on your, deliverable, your printed stuff. So, that's still important. You still need to submit your work. You know your stuff, guys. You guys are experts at what you do, right? Don't, we're trying to raise your profile here. We're trying to give you some credibility. So to trust that. But there will be rigor. We did have one person who I think is an excellent surveyor, but what do I know? I'm not a surveyor, in case anybody was wondering. But anyway, I think he's great and I love him and he runs a great business and he's fabulous. And he put in his submission and the paperwork was not very good. Okay. And so I think we're still trying to figure out what to do. I think he's going to come through the new process and try again. Okay. So, we want you to have a go. We want you to try and pull the thing together. We've tried to provide you with much clearer approach to how to do it. And we are going to cover that in the next session. So there will be an interview and those with the 20 years experience are likely to get a longer interview because we want to check that you do actually know what you're doing. Okay. Now, some of you studied overseas. It's great. Welcome to Australia. We're glad that you're here. We appreciate that you studied in the UK or Iran has a pretty good degree, I hear, and a few of those others. But we need to do an extra assessment piece for that. Now, some of you have been through an overseas assessment qualification. Great. We'll need to have a look at that. But there is an extra fee for us to assess your overseas qualification. Now, we actually already do overseas assessment qualifications for CRS bands for the cadastral guys, and we already do the diploma equivalency for Transport for New South Wales. Okay, so we've got experience in this. We know what we're doing, and so we can do those. It's not simple, okay, because the courses are not the same. I mean, in the UK, you're not even called surveyors, are you? Aren't you site engineers in the UK? Okay, so we're trying to make you surveyors here. And so we do need to do that assessment component, which means you've got to get a copy of your transcript. Sometimes that can be hard to get. We appreciate this is not easy. It's not meant to be easy. Okay, you're joining a specialised group of recognised certified surveyors. There's a standard, okay, and we expect you to come up to that. Now, we've already heard from a few who did pre-2009 qualifications. Again, just bring it to us. We'll have a look. The committee's working around this. We've got some great people that know this stuff inside and out. So, don't stress about it. Talk to us about it, okay? Don't think I can't do it. It's too hard. Mine won't match. We want to work through it with you, okay? So once you get that qualification piece worked out, okay, then how does the application part work? We are looking now at 5 projects. Now, they might be the same project. Cameron, you only do tunnels, right?
Yes, mate, mostly, yeah.
Do you do
That's
bridges
right.
and roads and...
There's roads and tunnels and there's bridges and tunnels, right? So, yeah, I mean, maybe this is where some of the committee members may have to step in, but it's this is this is all about project context, and in the documentation is trying to explain what the committee or what we're considering what a structure is, what a roadway is, what a railway infrastructure, and what a underground asset is. So in a tunnel environment, for example, there would be a bridge and there is a roadway, so I can justify a control survey in a tunnel or in a roadway through that method. And
so just to be clear, you don't have to, so we've heard from some of you as well, Cross River Rail, some of you are still working on it, right? I mean, is that thing ever going to open? So, we recognise that some of you might have been working on the same project for 5 or more years. That's fine. As Cameron said, there would be different components within that one overall project. So that's why we're calling it project context. You don't have to have done a bridge and a motorway and a railroad and a sewage plant, okay? You just have to do 5 in any one of these, okay? So we think this will be one of the things that people might get a bit unstuck with. So just
Confused,
check with us. Yeah, but the application process, we're using an online portal through our RTO actually, and we've tried to make it very clear. Okay, so the idea is that what we're looking for here is we're looking for 5 examples that you can prove you know what you're doing. Okay, so you know what you're doing when it comes to survey control on a bridge. You know what you're doing when it comes to an as-built for a high-rise. You know what you're doing perhaps on a detail survey for a roadway, okay? And you know what you're doing on an as-built for wastewater. Do you do as-builts for wastewater? You know, I don't really know, right? Anyway.
Recyclable. Yeah.
Thank you. Good. See, thank you. Thank you. So you get the idea, I hope. I hope that's clear enough. And as we said, if you've worked on one project, you've likely done survey control for a bridge, survey control for a road, you know, as built for this, and then data management, project management and data analytics and the management side of that.
Yep.
That's a huge component of what you all do, isn't it? And it's the future of what we do. So we want to make sure that you can show that you can do that. So you choose 5 projects, okay? And then you choose these core competency areas. So you don't have to show survey control for all 5, but you have to show survey control at least once. You have to show either detail survey or as-built. Now, the reason that's there is because I heard from a few engineering surveyors that they had to do detail surveys when they did their study, and they never want to have to do one again if they can get away with it, right? So I appreciate that. Hence, we added as-builts, conformance. It's got a few other names, hasn't it? As-builts. So you can do either of all, or you can do all of them. You can do one project for survey control, one for detail surveys, one for an as-built, one for project management, one for data analytics. There's 5 across a road, a bridge, a railway, a sewage, and maybe another road. Like you can do 2 roads. You can do 3 roads if you want to, right? We're trying to check that some of you only do roads. We appreciate that that's all you do. We understand that's the space that you choose to work in. We want to know that you know what this looks like in all of those scenarios. So if you only do roads, I want to see something on a major arterial, maybe a smaller arterial, maybe a smaller road, something you did for a local council perhaps. Okay, that's what, not me. I'm not an assessor. Don't let me near it. That'd be a bit scary, wouldn't it? Okay, so that's what we're looking for. These will be, and this will be the area we dive into on the webinar on the 16th. Okay, for those of you that want more information on this, some of you will see today's webinar and you'll go, oh yeah, that's easy, I can do that. And you'll go and you'll pull it together in no time at all. Okay. Now, this is in the candidate guide. We've reduced the candidate guide. Yeah, we'll come back to the questions. We've reduced the candidate guide. It's still long. I'm sorry. It's very hard to get it shorter, but it is shorter than it used to be. And we've tried to give you as much detail of what the assessors are looking for, right? So we've told you what evidence we expect, and we've told you what the assessor prompts will be. This is what the assessors are looking for. We're not trying, this is not secret squirrel stuff. We're not trying to make this, you know, like you've got to guess what the square root of whatever is, right? We expect you know what you're doing, and the reason we have an interview at the end is so that we can check that you didn't just use AI to pull it together. Okay. So each of these have their own criteria, their own evidence of what we're looking for, because you've got to upload that evidence. And we're also got the assessor prompts, and there'll be a matrix. There's a rubric that the assessors will be marking against. So this is fair, just, as much as we can. So we're looking for control, we're looking for capture, we're looking for your processing, all of that. We don't need to know who the client was. We don't need to know how much you got paid for it. We don't need to know what you paid your staff. We don't need to know any of that confidential, private information. Okay. We do need a reference though. And our most ideal reference from you is from another certified engineering surveyor who you have worked with, ideally on this project. But we recognise there's currently only 190 in the country. So that's a hard ask. We don't want you to get a reference from the project manager who can barely spell the word survey. Okay. So they need to know and be able to show us that you know what you're doing. Okay. So that is going to be an important component. And we are looking for quality. Okay. We're looking for diary extracts, all those sorts of things. So we're looking for what you did, not what the team did. Okay. Because this is to prove your personal competency. Please don't give us all your raw data files. Give us something we can assess and look at. The application process. It's all online now. It's very, very simple. There's no Word document. I mean, there are some Word documents, but, you know, it's very simple. The first thing you've got to do is be a member of Surveyors Australia. So if you're not a member, you need to join, and I can talk to you separately about that. You do need to do an executive summary, and we recommend that you download the executive summary and keep a summary of what you're putting in, because you've got to go back. So we actually recommend you do the executive summary last. Okay. You need to gather your supporting evidence. Okay. And there is a fee. Now, the fee is minimal. It's $500, guys. Okay. And girls, it's not a lot of money. And you know who's going to get that money? The assessors. Previous GCA, I believe, ran a volunteer model. We pay people. We don't pay them what they're worth, but because $100 per assessment isn't a lot, is it? Right? But there's a few processes it's got to go through. So the assessor, you get 2 assessors that look at your original submission, and then you get 2 assessors that interview you. Okay. So these assessors, for the many, we've had some assessments that take 5 hours to assess, and they're getting plus the interview that they're going to do with you, and we're paying them the whopping amount of $200 each. So, and then we've got $100 to cover some of our admin costs, because we've got to pay for the back end software and some of those, and my staff to do it. So that's where your $500 goes. This is not a money-making exercise for us. In fact, I haven't made money on this thing for years yet. One day maybe, but there's no money-making in this for us. So your assessment is being run via our RTO platform. So there's all sorts of added security to that. There's all you know, that's how we assess our certificate and diploma students. So there's a lot of compliance and a lot of governance that goes into that system. That's why we're using it. Okay, but it is 2 systems. So you need to join and apply via the Surveyors Australia website. Then what we have to do is we have to manually add you to the assessment site. So there is a bit of a delay. It's not all automatic. So all of you that are going to go away from this call and you're going to go and immediately apply, it'll take us most of the weekend to then add you into the application process. And you will get another link that you can then enter, and you will be able to upload your data and your information as you go. Right? So you can do one project next week, you can do another project the week after, another one the week after. So you can come back to it. It saves, it remembers where you're up to, it tells us how you're going in the process. Right. If you do one project and then you forget about it for 6 weeks, you'll probably get an email from us and say, hey, you started, how are you going? Do you need some help? Okay, so that will be there, and we will come back to you and help you through that. When the assessors assess you, you will be able to see on the platform that your assessors have picked up the documentation, and they'll be able to give you comments and feedback on how each of those have done. So if there's like 3 of them were good, but I need a bit more information on project 4, could you get me data files or diary info, or you missed the reference on this one, that sort of thing. And you will get an email that tells you that. Okay. So it's very interactive. You'll be able to see how you're progressing. Once you've completed all of that, then you go for the interview. We'll schedule the interview, and then you're ticked off, approved, and then you get your badge, and then you go onto the National Register. And then you've got to maintain CPD. Okay. Sounds simple, doesn't it? You'll be doing yours on the weekend, won't you, Cam?
Yeah. Well, I'm quite, so the whole, Michelle, so the whole, it's going to be just through this whole portal. That's excellent.
Yes.
Yeah, right. And all the communication will be through there. And
yes.
will that be kept as a record? Or,
yes.
Yeah, right. Excellent.
Yes. So we'll have a record of your application. So if anybody ever questions you, or let's say you change employers, or you move from project to project, some of you I know are subcontractors and you move from project to project, we've got all that information, we've got those records, we've got all of that. And what we want to do is that will help inform us on, some things on how we should be improving the program and what we should be teaching on. So if we get a few applications and we're like, there's a bit of a problem here around as-built, people aren't getting it, or there's a bit of a problem here around data management, we'll be developing short courses and CPD programs and things to help upskill you all in some of these areas. That's what our webinar series, we're going to be running a webinar once a month, thanks to Emerson, and they'll be focused on each of these areas to keep those core competencies competent. Some of the questions that we've already been getting, we're nearly at the end here, we're going to get to questions. Your referee, we recommend, is a current certified engineering surveyor or a supervisor. Needs to be somebody who actually understands, as I said, what you've done. Ongoing, once you are a certified engineering surveyor, you need to maintain your membership. And membership for us is due in July. Okay, so that's when your renewals happen, in July. You need to do 15 CPD points a year. 5 of those need to be engineering, and the rest are what we call survey practice. So we run a lot of business webinars. We have a lot of business stuff. You can do that. There'll be a lot of other stuff, like some of you might go to a cadastral conference. We'll give you points for that, okay? Not engineering points, though. You've actually got to do engineering points to get engineering points. But we'll deliver that. But we will make sure you can get your 5 points. We've got a new library, a new online library that you'll be able to do. So we'll make sure. Look, I had a meeting today with Oz Seabed, right? They want to talk to us about bathymetric stuff. Some points there coming your way. Very exciting. If you relapse, so if you go overseas or you take another job and then you want to come back in, you can reapply after 3 years. So the next steps, download the guide on our website. Angelique might put that in the chat so that everybody can get a copy of that. Check your eligibility, which pathway are you going? Get your qualifications all sorted. Start thinking about your 5 projects and having a look at the core competencies. But contact us if you need any help.
Michelle, would it be worthwhile mentioning, if they get the CES, they can become part of that ecosystem of the professional standards scheme, all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really talk much about that. We have a professional standards scheme that is recognised by the Professional Standards Council of Australia. And what that does is it helps limit your liability. In fact, I think Pete Edwards might be on the call here today. It actually allows for you to reduce your PI insurance. Now, I know many of you work on projects that expect you to have a $20 million PI, because you could do $20 million worth of harm. Ridiculous. That's another thing we're advocating for, by the way. That's going to be a big project for us this year. The other thing we're advocating for is to make sure that CES is in contracts and is in tenders and is recognised. But right now, we've got less than 200 of you with it. If I went out and got all the contracts changed, you'd all be in trouble, right? So it's a chicken and egg thing here. I need more of you to have your certification whilst I'm getting it put into tender processes. And we've got a big push on procurement this year, something that we're working on. So yeah, next webinar is the 16th, where we're going to dive into some of those competencies a little bit deeper with our committee. So now we can go to questions. Thanks to Emerson. Let's see what we've got in the chat. I'll go back to. So this is where if you want to put your camera on and unmute and ask a question, please raise your hand. We'd love to do something there. So whilst that's happening, Tony, thank you for your thing. The experience pathway is good. Thank you. However, an individual could have worked for many years and still not be suitably qualified. Will they be able to be certified, or is there a vetting process? There is a vetting process to verify competency. And so, you know, at the moment we've capped it at 20 years. So if you've got somebody who's 15, 16, 18 years, you want to come through and let us know about them. We're just keeping a list right now. At the moment, as I said, we've just started at the 20. How do you provide evidence of past jobs which you've left? It's a great question and a challenge that I don't know whether somebody on the committee might have an answer for. You know, you might look, you just might not be able to. Okay. You might need to just start now collecting your data and your information. You know, if you can do 5 projects this year that cover those areas, and remember, they could be one project, but different contexts, then so we recognize for some of you, this could be difficult. And so this is an ongoing thing for you. So, but we do need the evidence to prove. How are you going to prove to us that you know what you're doing if you can't provide us the evidence? Would be my final thing. So there's just something here about those licensed surveyors, licensed and registered surveyors being on a project with someone seeking certification. They might be able to verify their competency. We have heard, particularly in Victoria, where, you know, they do ask for a licensed surveyor to come on and sign off. And in some cases, the licensed surveyors don't have that experience or expertise to be able to do that. We expect there will be licensed and registered surveyors that will apply for their certification.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, you know, we think that'll be good. Alex, good question about the Queenslanders. There is already, as a registered surveyor in Queensland, Marion, I just saw you put your hand up. Maybe you could put your camera and mic on and talk to us about why people in Queensland who are registered surveyors might do the certification. Because, and part of this is, we just had an issue recently where some councils said that only registered surveyors could do ADACs. Really? Doesn't sound right, does it? So sure, registered surveyors can, and I'm saying please get your registration through the Surveyors Board of Queensland. That'd be great. We want you to still do that. And we want you to be, you know, associate recognised and all of that. But we want to talk to the Queensland Board about recognising this. I mean, the fact is there's only 30 registered engineering surveyors in Queensland. So Queensland's a bit of another topic. Okay, hands are up. I've got to figure out how to do this now.
Sam Bowman.
You're first. Sam Bowman, you're first. You turn your mic on, tell us your story.
Hi guys, Sam here from Fife in Queensland. Yeah, I was just wondering about the second process, the 5-year, you get the degree. Do you foresee this being an iterative process, do you think? So, you know, you send in your 5 projects, you might not quite tick everything off, and you mentioned the $500 isn't quite enough to, you know, be that exciting for the assessors to go through it. If you're sending 3 iterations in, is that going to be a drama, do you think? Do you think that's going to be the way it goes?
We'd rather you got it right the first time so that we don't have to, you know, go. But look, we're all learning through this process. And what we're trying to do is just continually improve this process. And feedback we had before was that it was hard. There weren't, you know, it was too complex. It was too hard to understand. So we're trying to make it simpler, easier to get through, but still maintain a standard, right? So, but the assessors are not going to let somebody through that doesn't meet the standard. So we will go back and forward a couple of times. How many times we go back and forward? I don't know whether there's one of the assessors on the call here that wants to say how many times they're willing to go back and forward, but actually the reason they're on this committee and the reason that we've got others that have stepped up to be assessors is because they believe in this process and they want to support the profession moving forward. So they all want to see you get through, you know, and they'll have a conversation with you if it's getting a bit beyond the pale, hey?
I think it's fair to say, Michelle, too. I mean, I haven't had a good look at the latest submission, but in the previous submission, there was a lot of work done on, naming conventions, and also even if people can just simply follow those sorts of things, that's going to help greatly, if you ask me. Marion, you may want to add to that, mate, but you as a person on the committee, but naming conventions and keeping that all clear and nice and neat. Even though I think there's a matrix or a registered require. Yep.
Yeah, the most
Yeah.
important thing would be to have the
Thanks, Sam.
application.
Tim? Oh, Marion, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I was saying about the application, the most important
can't
thing
hear.
would be, can you hear me?
Yep. Gotcha. Got you.
Yeah, I would say what you should guys should focus. You can't hear me?
I can hear you, mate. But,
we can hear him.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
it's just me. All right, I'll just be quiet now.
Okay, then, if the application is nice and tidy and you provide the evidence, which is clearly labeled, we know exactly what we are looking for, that's the 50% of the success. As Michelle said, don't do like a data dump with a raw data and 10,000 pages of observation because nobody will try to decipher it. But if you put the evidence in an easy to understand format and we can figure out what actually happened on the project, that's halfway there. And there were a few questions here about the what about the project when there is no evidence because they happened 10 years ago, or what about the project when client doesn't let me keep any evidence because it's government project or military project. Of course, it would be the best to know, to have some kind of a proof conformance reports or the specifications. But in the end of the day, if you were to write a piece of put down to paper a bit of a story. I was on this type of a project. Those were the specifications. If this was for New South Wales, you can write G71, R44. What are the specs? What were the requirements? What were the constraints of the brief and how you achieve them? If you're going to write a story which says like a survey story, this is what I had to do, this is how I achieved it, this was the outcome, even if we don't have all the evidence to show everything step by step, we can still see that you know exactly what you're talking about. And this will be picked up during the interview. So in my mind, even evidence would be hey, I had to work to G71 and I use exactly those clauses from G71 to adjust my survey control network or to provide my as-built data. So evidence-wise, it's not only like a physical evidence as a report or a sketch, it's also what you put there and what you used to prepare to work back in the past on this project.
Thanks, Marion. Excellent, mate. Michelle, back online now. Tim, I want to go to Tim?
Yeah, let's go to Tim.
Yeah, thanks very much. So Tim Fowler from West Australia. My question is about the level of advocacy with clients who are looking to take up CES surveyors on their projects, and depending on the level of advocacy, how that might actually affect.
Did he freeze or was it me this time?
Yeah, he's frozen for me.
He froze?
Yep. If I understand the question, Michelle, I think it's all about, it's getting people involved, and then we are starting the advocacy work, right? The last thing I would want, I mean, we talked a bit about pathway number 2.
You froze a little bit there, but we think the question is about how we're going to get this accepted and how we're going to make it quite political.
Yeah, sorry, I think I'm back. No, it's the level of advocacy. I'll just be querying the level of advocacy, and are we looking for a situation where all the surveyors on site are CES qualified or certified, and then how that might impact the future surveyors getting experience on those projects prior to them having the qualification themselves?
Yeah, no, absolutely. We're very conscious of that. Just in relation to it being accepted, we've been told by some of the, construction companies, etc., that if we can get the government to accept it, they'll accept it. So we know we've got to start with the government. So we're working with all the transport main roads, all those big roads, all those agencies first. We've had discussions with all of them. They're all very open to it and willing to adjust their procurement processes accordingly. We recognise, though, that you will still need to have juniors and people learning and, others coming through the ranks that will need to be overseen. And so supervision will continue to be a component of what's required. And so we're not looking to say only certified engineering surveyors can do this, but there might be levels that need a certified engineering surveyor. who can be overseeing junior surveyors, you know.
Yeah,
So
I would
So
agree
looking,
with that.
looking
Michelle.
for oversight on the project from
oversight.
CES.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
it
right.
hasn't been discussed in great deal, but we've got to do that, mate. You know, from my point of view, you know, perhaps a level of supervision from at a CES standard. I mean, we're short surveyors as it is, right? You know, so yep.
Yeah, that's right. Alex?
Yeah, hi Michelle, hi everyone.
Hi.
Yeah, I just thought I would raise the question that as a Queensland surveyor and a registered surveyor and an engineering surveyor for over 20 years, I feel like I'm pretty well qualified to figure out where this fits in the Queensland space. So I know, Michelle, you sort of said it's probably a discussion, another discussion, but the only difference I can really see between this and the registered surveyor is the entry barrier, being that you have to have a bachelor degree currently. So is this more of a gap filler for those that are those that just don't have that but have every other quality professionally as a surveyor, or is it meant to replace or supplement the current system? Because like I don't feel compelled to get a CES when I've already got registration because I've done everything. Like I don't want to do it twice. So is there a way that you can get recognition to if this becomes a requirement at a contract level, or is this something that you're going to get implemented at a state law level so that like the registration is, so that it applies at a higher level?
It is our goal ultimately to get it at legislation level. That is certainly something that we are aiming for. As surveying acts are reviewed around the country, we'll be pushing for this to be included. So that's definitely on the agenda. So far as Queensland goes, I mean, that's right. You have that registered component, but and the associate component. So it's a question of, you know, so currently associates can't do ADAC, right? They can't do the as-built, as designed, as constructed reports according to the councils in Queensland. But
So
they
it's
could be certified engineering surveyors. So we'll be pushing for the councils to adjust their requirement to accept registered surveyors and certified engineering surveyors. So it's certainly not replacing the registered surveyor. It will be supplementing the registered surveyor in Queensland. And remembering that Queensland's the only one that has that kind of different level of registration.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay. And would there be, if someone had their registration, would they need to do all the same competencies again if they've already got that competency from the government's body, being the Surveyors Board, or is it because you've got...
I think it's going to be, so I mean, for example, if you wanted to do a TMR road now, and I don't know if Noel's on the call, but if you wanted to go and do a TMR project right now in Queensland, you would either need, and they have different levels, so you would either need to be a registered surveyor or a certified engineering surveyor. They already have that requirement in place.
So rather
different
than
levels
two,
of the project, you know,
rather than have two, then you just, as long as you've got one or the other, depending on the level of job, then yeah, that kind of answers the question.
But if you're working in, you know, because I mean, you do cadastral as well, right? And so for others that don't do any cadastral, certified engineering is where they need to go. And you know, thinking about the major construction projects and the like, you know, because we actually have more certified engineering surveyors in Queensland than any other state.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. So, you know, I'm going to encourage you to do it anyway, Alex. Problem here, Scott raises a very good question, as does Peter in the chat, that tier one providers and government projects won't let you take data, copy data, use data for the purposes that we're asking for it for. Now, I can't answer that question, but Marion, I'm going to throw to you again. Do you have an answer for that, given that you do that sort of work? Do you have an answer for that? I assume you can appeal to your supervisor, etc., and say, look, I'm doing it for this purpose.
Yeah, so if the information produced on the project is somehow privileged, obviously we can't really do much about it. People are not allowed to share it. I never had a problem sharing the information if information about the client or about the project location went blanked out. Like, we don't really have to know exactly where this location, who was the client, or where exactly the project was located. We want to look at the conformance report and see that you know there's alignment, coordinates, and tolerances there. So this data, like a sensitive data, can be redacted. So there's a question if the redacted data can be submitted. And another one is we had in the past people applying who were working years for engineering firms, let's say in Saudi Arabia, and they were not allowed to bring any data with them because they work in the bunker in the middle of the desert. So in those cases, we just said to them, just write down what you are doing without any details and describe the surveying process. In the end of the day, there will be an interview, and we're going to be asking the questions about the process, whether you understand, surveying, engineering surveying at its basic level.
Thank you. Okay, well, there's no more in the chat and we are at time. So I'm going to say thank you all very much. We're happy to stay on and answer more questions, but appreciate 5 o'clock in Sydney and Melbourne and Canberra and Tasmania, and people want to go for their long weekend. So just a couple of finishing slides here. We've got a few webinars and a few things coming up for those of you who are heading towards the end of career. We've got this great webinar called Discover Life Beyond Your Career. That actually might be something for all of you who don't actually have any time outside of what it is that you do. We should all have a hobby, apparently. We have a business academy coming up in New South Wales on the 5th of February and Queensland on the 23rd of February. So more information about those are on our website. And the next webinar where we dive into the core competencies will be on the 16th of February. So if you haven't already registered for that, please do so. Special thank to Emerson. Shane for being with us today. You will see a lot more of them in the coming weeks and months. We'll do something special with some of the products and great services that they've got for you all, but very pleased to have them on as our strategic innovation partner. Thank you all very much for your time and diligence today. Thank you for your questions. We know there will be more. We want to try and answer them. We want to try and get this through. We're going to do as much as we can to make this work for everybody. So
Is Michelle frozen, everyone?
Looks like it.
Yeah, I'll finish
Yes.
off. But listen, there's a lot of thumbs up, every clap. If I'll just finish by saying, we've got to start talking about it, everybody. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we've got to start talking about it. Yeah, email, talk about it at the pub, amongst our cohort, amongst our profession. I think it's important to start to get the word out because there's been a lot of effort put into this, and there's special people set aside. We've got Jasmine setting up this 50% of her job. ITA's all set up, the RTO is all ready to go. All right, looking forward to seeing you all on the next call. Good luck, eh?
Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Good on you.